Personal attorney Michael Cohen to break the law. The exclusive Fox News interview in just a moment. But first, in the wake of all the Mueller probe developments, Democrats continue to beat the impeachment drum and predict the president's demise.
I believe that this president is dangerous. I think he has undermined our democracy. I think he's aligned himself with the enemy, with Putin. He loves dictators. And I believe that he certainly qualifies for impeachment. We may never get it done. And maybe Democrats fear that somehow, if we move to impeach him, maybe his base will grow larger. I don't think so.
I'm prepared to say something I've never said. The writing's on the wall, the walls are closing in, and this is the beginning of the end for the Trump administration.
This comes as Trump defends himself against accusations of any wrongdoing with Michael Cohen.
I never directed him to do anything incorrect or wrong. And he understands that. Look, he did some bad things unrelated to me, maybe related to his other clients. I wasn't his only client. Number one, they say it's not a campaign finance violation. Number two, or it's not even under campaign finance. Number two, if it was, it's not even a violation. Number three, it's a civil matter. You know, President Obama had a really big one from 10 times more money, much more money. And you know what? He paid a fine. I'm the only one that this happens to. So what happened is either Cohen or the prosecutors, in order to embarrass me, said, listen, I'm making this deal for reduced time and everything else. Do me a favor, put these two charges on. They're not criminal charges.
All right, so we're going to take it around the table. The thing is, Emily, we'll start with you. So Democratic political elites, so the establishment, they know the political perils of going for impeachment. But the base, they really want President Trump to be impeached. So they're kind of in between a rock and a hard place.
That's true. I also think that what I don't understand is how you can reconcile that. And there's just a few things about impeachment that I feel like should be part of the conversation. So one of them being the amount of time and effort and cost that it takes. To what end? When we all know that there would be an acquittal in the Senate. And secondly, the call today from Representative Schiff about, oh, we should amend or make an exception to the Office of Legal Counsel's decision. I read that decision, and that affirms a 1973 decision, and that calls up precedents literally going back to the Federalist Papers and including Clinton
and the
v.
Logan
Jones.
Act
and Clinton v. Jones. And so to me, the greater travesty is that we are having legislators call for that kind of influence on the DOJ when isn't the entire conversation this whole time and all of their shouting about separation of powers. So that level of influence to me and that kind of vendetta and wasting my taxpayer dollars for that reason, that's what's unacceptable.
I like the hand gestures. It's very good. Bring more of it. Juan, what do you think is going to happen between this push and pull? I mean, it's like the base is like pushing forward. They want this impeachment, and you've got people like Nancy Pelosi, like, let's just tap the brakes on that. But can she withhold those forces?
Oh yeah, I mean, I just don't think this is very realistic. At this point, people like Steny Hoyer, who's the number two, say, listen, just wait on Mueller. Let's see what he has. Let's see what comes. But if you're talking about the American people, a lot of American people think that what's been going on is pretty outrageous, and they worry about it, not only in terms of what one congressman, Heck of Washington, we saw him at the start of the show, said there have been 36 people have been indicted, 3 people now, prison terms. And you start to think, what is going on with the President of the United States? Why is he so friendly with Putin? You know, is this a distraction? Even for Republicans, Dana, I think you see Republicans starting to say, I don't know about that. I don't know about the wall, et cetera. But I think the key today was how President Trump is just so wildly trying to distance himself from people who get in trouble, specifically Michael Cohen. He says, oh, remember a long time ago he said, I didn't know anything about these payments. No payment was made. Then we had Giuliani say, yes, a payment was made, and Trump repaid Cohen. And now you hear Trump saying, oh, you know, this is a low-level employee. I don't even think he was a lawyer. I think he was a PR guy. You start to think,
PR people
wow.
are really important, by the way.
Yeah, but a day ago he said lawyers should know, and he described Cohen as a lawyer who should know if he was making a legal payment. Now he's a PR guy.
But Jesse, let's take a look real quick at something else that happened during the interview today. I think you might be interested in this little thing that the president said. We have that?
I just see this on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, which just came out. Look, Trump didn't violate campaign finance laws, and neither did the president. Trump ex-aid. So they're saying that...
Wait, I interviewed him on my program the other day. That's Han von Spakovsky. Yes,
Here's
he
another
says
one.
that.
Michael Cohen pled guilty to something that's not even a crime.
You know that guy, Hans von Spakovsky, HVS.
HVS. I have the sheet right here. I'm bringing it to every single 5 until this thing is concluded. I'm going to make Juan read it. Juan, this is your homework. Take it off my hands.
Thank you.
I'm going to test you tomorrow on it. All right?
It's a deal.
All right. So, yes, obviously, the FEC. I'm not even going to bore you with it because it's very granular. A lot of people that know a lot about the campaign finance law do not believe this payment violated any law whatsoever.
What about the prosecutors?
Which prosecutors?
Oh, I think the New York, Southern District of New York apparently think that
some of the partisan prosecutors are trying
partisan.
to link the president with the other crimes that Cohen committed regarding taxes, and that's what was most of the sentence. The harassment thing, I think the Democrats are playing with fire, and here's why. You remember what happened with Kavanaugh? So there was so much injustice with Kavanaugh and so much unfairness, and it was so out of bounds that it really activated the Republican base. And if the Republicans going into 2020 see partisan prosecutors and Maxine and her bandits going after this president, and a lot of kind of shadowy people within the government trying to take away a democratically elected president from our republic, people are going to feel robbed. And if people feel like their votes are being robbed, they're going to turn out so heavily, and there's going to be so much backlash against this president, it's going to be astronomical. Another form of harassment now, Letitia James, I believe like she's the local AG here in New York City.
State.
Yeah, state. She just elected. She says, I'm going to investigate Trump Tower. I'm going to investigate the Trump Company. I'm going to investigate the Trump Foundation. What crime is she investigating? She's just investigating everything that says TRUMP, regardless of whether there's a crime. That's not how prosecutors, that's not how attorney generals are supposed to operate. Okay. That's outside the law.
All right, Greg, we have covered a lot of ground so far, but we got to get your take.
Yeah, first of all, Juan is not correct. America doesn't care about what's going on in this. Collusion, when it's polled, always polls the lowest in terms of concern. America doesn't care about people like Cohen. These people just happen to be on the periphery. What they care about is the economy, jobs, their family, which means national security, safety, and law enforcement, how to protect this country. They don't care about this stuff the same way they didn't care when they went after Bill Clinton. And what did the impeachment proceedings do to Bill Clinton? It made America love him more because America loves a bad boy. If Trump faces impeachment, he becomes an orange Fonzie. He will become an orange Fonzie. I have a compromise, though, for the people who want impeachment. Yeah. Just ask Trump to work half as much. Okay? Because you want him gone because he just works too hard. So why does he just work half as much? Because one Trump day is really 7 days in Democrat days. So that is why the media and why the Democrats look so exhausted is because he's working them into the ground. So the compromise is just ask Donald Trump, don't work so much.
Well, that's not so hard. He's taking a 16-day Christmas holiday.
Good for him, man. He does 5 things in a day when presidents usually get around to 1. But they can't. Here's the thing. Impeach him. What do you get? You get Pence. Pence is so conservative. He once paid off a woman after he shook her hand.
I didn't know that.
Yes. So you're going to trade in Mr. Right. You're going to get Mr. Even more right. But anyway, it's just stupid. This is such a travesty. We spent so much time on this stupid story.
Okay, well, that was my block. President Trump defiant in his plan to get funding for the wall. The latest on the border battle. Up next.
Oh, you think I'm talking crazy in a different language?
Not backing down in his fight over the border wall. The president insisting Mexico will pay for it through the new U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade agreement. Democrats, on the other hand, they're not budging as a potential government shutdown looms.
I want to be crystal clear. There will be no additional appropriations to pay for the border wall.
We should not be wasting $5 billion, or in fact a lot more than that, which is what Trump eventually wants, on a wall.
I don't envision any circumstance where we allocate $5 billion or anything even close to that. Donald Trump is a performance artist. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer are serious legislators.
We're for $0 in border wall funding.
Well, so Dana, I'm going to ask you to go inside the thinking here on the Republican side, because you see people like John Cornyn, number 2 in the Senate, saying he doesn't understand the strategy. Why would the president say that he's going to be responsible if there's a shutdown? Shelley Moore Capito, West Virginia, says it's a fool's errand to have a shutdown. What do you think?
Well, I would think that they're thinking about their constituents, right? That their constituents are going to say, like, not this again, don't do this again. But I think that the president's saying, like, it means this much to me. And, they've turned the tables on him a little bit. They're going to call it the Trump shutdown. And he says, fine, I'll take it. I think that's leadership, actually. Like, to say, he believes in it so much. I do wish that he would actually give a straight address rather than he gives so many news interviews. And he never has a time to actually walk through and explain to people and persuade them and say, you might disagree with me, but let me explain to you. This is why I think it's necessary. And this is why I think that we need to take action right now. This is what this money would do. This is why I'm trying to be a good steward of your taxpayer dollars. And then take it to the Congress. Instead, it's become just a partisan fight, unfortunately. But I do think that the public's become a little bit immune to this government by shutdown. It's never really that serious. Mm-hmm. They don't do it for very long. And I think it's actually a less interesting story than the A block. It's stupid.
Yes, I agree.
Well, I thought you were going to go on.
I have a compromise. I had the A block. I had a compromise. Trump works half as much instead of impeachment. Here's another solution that brings Mexico and America together. Okay, so Trump keeps saying, we're going to build the wall and Mexico's going to pay for it, right? It should be the opposite. Mexico builds the wall and we pay Mexico. Because why do people immigrate to the United States?
Jobs.
Why do people come to the United States? For jobs, right? That's the number one priority. So export the jobs, because many immigrants, when they come here, the first job that they have is often a starter hard job, right? They come here and they do the hard work. We say, okay, we'll pay you to do the hard work there. Mexico's economy is made great again because there's thousands and thousands of jobs. So by getting Mexico to actually build the wall that we pay for, you end up not needing the wall because Mexico is great again.
And save money in the long run.
Did you follow that?
I got
Because I did.
Yeah.
In my brain.
Yeah, I'm glad.
I don't mean that producers are stupid. I mean that government by shutdown is stupid. That's what I meant.
Dana's apologized.
All right.
I'm not going to be a party to that.
Yeah.
That genius, I was. You knocked me out, man.
Your mind. It's your mind. It's over there.
All right. So Jesse saved me here.
You're asking me to save you?
Yeah, because that was too blinding.
He's going to throw you an anvil.
I know. Okay, so the president says, really, under the new NAFTA deal, Mexico and I guess Canada too would pay for the wall. But didn't he say long ago, that Mexico would pay, and now he's making it seem as if, not Mexican taxpayers, but American taxpayers who benefit from the new trade deal.
Yeah, I think he's saying if you rectify the auto and steel trade imbalances through the new NAFTA negotiation, you're going to come out on top, and that's what's going to be able to pay for the wall. To Greg's point,
she's laughing.
I'm smiling.
Yeah, okay.
I thought that was a pretty good answer. Can I just stop the presses for a second?
Yeah,
Greg has not stopped talking throughout the entire show. Every commercial break. Here's some direct quotes from Greg. You ready? Ready? Birds are very territorial. I have bumps all over my head. I'd be a terrible bald person. And
wow,
I have a better idea than animals are great that's really going to take off. This is the stuff that we're confronted with in the commercial break. How am I supposed to even compose myself?
You can't. You just violated the commercial break rule.
Is that a rule?
Yes.
Oh, I'm in deep trouble.
But I do have bumps on my head. And I would be a terrible bald person.
Are you drinking like espresso?
No. I just had a few Advil.
Oh,
I had a bad night.
A lot of caffeine. All right. So Emily, let's get back to the topic. It's tough, but let's try. Stephen King says to the president.
I had some other stuff of substance to say, but
go right ahead.
It's fine.
I thought you were talking about Greg.
I'm not your little comedian.
You kind of surrendered your time. I'll take over. I got you, Jesse.
Right, wait a minute. Did you say?
Listen, we'll talk about the wall tomorrow.
I called you my little comedian.
I'm just putting words in your mouth.
Oh, thank you. All right. But I don't want to. Okay.
All right. I have a lot to say about this. First of all, I think what's the most concerning to me is the fact that this whole conversation about that funding for the wall is totally nebulous. It's not not all going towards a physical construction. There's also agents, there's technology, there's a whole host of things. So I feel like it's lazy and misleading for Democrats to harp on whether or not it's green or red light when citizens deserve to understand how that's allocated. Because for border security and protection, absolutely. What really is the difference between $1.8 billion, which Schumer has expressly approved, and $5 billion when we're throwing $380 million at the states for voter security? Take it back. Let them deal with it on their own. Sorry, California sinking ship. Figure it out. Or how much foreign aid we're giving. Or what else did I write down? The IRS, $196 million to the IRS to improve customer service.
Can I one up you on that? Tammy Bruce said this on Hannity the other night, and then Trump stole it from her. She said, if we're going to give the Iranians $150 billion, we can't give $5 billion towards border security.
Can I offer 200 people a day die from drug overdoses? Get out of here. Like, we're playing with money, and the government shutdown is a threat. I totally disagree with that leverage.
Who started this? Trump said Mexico will pay.
I have another compromise.
Yeah, go right
I have another compromise.
Okay.
Build the wall accordion style. So you have it up half of the year, right? And then the other half of the year off to the side.
Why?
Because then the people who don't want the wall don't have the wall, and the people it's an accordion wall, and you just pull it out, and it's almost like joint custody in reverse.
Are you okay today?
I am Mr. Compromise.
You know what I think this sounds like? This sounds like one of those New York apartments that young people get where you have the wall.
That's where I got the idea. You know,
you want to hang a bed
a month from that guy.
I'm telling you, we're having a good time today. A Democratic congressman under fire for suggesting free speech should be regulated. Hear from him.
Get around the eminent domain issue, which is going to just prevent the wall anyway.
And who cares about their environment?
I care. Oh, Dana. My goodness. You're not invited to my Christmas party.
Well, are you having a Christmas party?
I'm not telling. Last night, Ted Lieu, a Democratic congressman from, spoiler alert, California, said that if he could, he'd restrict speech. You know, I believe him.
I would love to be able to regulate the content of speech. The First Amendment prevents me from doing so. And that's simply a function of the First Amendment. But I think over the long run, it's better that government does not regulate the content of speech.
Oh, how nice of him. Thank you, sir, for giving a thumbs up for our right to free speech. We were worried there. But here's the thing Ted misses about threats to speech. It's coming from his side. Today, it's the leftists on campus, shrill celebrities, nervous CEOs who seek to stop you from speaking your mind. Worse, they're also punishing you if you don't speak what's on their mind. Use the wrong pronoun, you're toast. Meanwhile, Trump's barreling in the opposite direction. He'll say anything. Take Tuesday's meeting. Chancey badly wanted the border wall discussion done in secret.
The point is that there are equities to be weighed. And we're here to have a conversation in a prayerful way. So I don't think we should have a debate in front of the press on this.
Trump insisted we see the sausage being made, and surprised, the media sided with the pair who wanted to hide the sausage. Funny, Trump's transparency scares the media, who pretended for so long to be about uncovering the truth. But that was only if the truth was what they believed. Fact is, when it comes to speech, you won't find a better role model than Trump. He won't shut up. And he's revived the dead mainstream media by giving them a simple business plan: bash Trump every day. For 8 years, they were as frozen as boardwalk bananas, and Trump finally thawed them out.
Why are you picking on Pence? So what if he was frozen?
he was, you know, he was like me on the subway. When something's going down on the subway and you don't want to make eye contact, you're just like this. Please. And Emily, I want you to use as much hand gestures as you can when I ask you, isn't speech under threat really on campuses and in companies, and it's not coming from Republicans?
Absolutely. And yes, and it's really, how about I sit on my hands for this, and then we'll see if I can, stay here. I mean, as evidenced by the fact that UC Berkeley was made to pay that huge settlement. And I want to point out something about Ted Lieu. He just gets under my skin so much. This guy, 20,000 tweets. I'm sure he would be the last person to want to be censored. And I looked up his record, you guys. He's missed 9.6% of votes. That's a huge percentage when the median is 2.4. So how about this, Rep? Why don't you take your time actually representing your constituents rather than shouting about it on Twitter and then trying to censor others? And, he also voted nay on the Patriot Act revision in 2015. So I find that surprising, given that basically he's against Big Brother in that regard, but then wants to censor others.
You can use your hands now.
Was this awkward?
Hands,
Was it like that?
Jesse, what are your thoughts on that stellar monologue?
My thought is, did someone screen that monologue beforehand?
I did.
Does anybody ever look that over, or do you just have full control?
He asked me.
People trust me.
No, really?
I'm the voice of America.
I thought Jesse was going to interrupt you and say, did you really say that he talks too much?
Yes.
That's not what I was going to interrupt and say.
No, you know the thing.
Other things.
Obviously, there was an implication that he was saying, I would like to limit speech, but he mentions Fox News. He would like to limit.
Yeah,
Fox
I mean, he
News.
wants to limit the First Amendment. They want to limit the Second Amendment. I remember this reminds me of President Obama when he kind of let it slip and he goes, "Yeah, we just want to spread the wealth around." And sometimes liberals say, "Yeah, I do want to regulate speech," and that's when the truth comes out. And you're right, they want to regulate it on college campuses, the internet. They tell Trump he can't say that, yet he keeps winning. So I don't think what they really want is working. What's happening here is that if you have 200 years and you have people in this country as politicians, you run out of new legislation. So in order to make yourself useful and justify your job, you have to say, we got to pass this bill, we got to pass this bill, we got to regulate this, we got to regulate businesses. After a while, you don't need any more laws. Everything's fine, guys. Rep. Leave it alone, Rep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Juan, do you agree? No more laws?
No more laws.
Yes, we're done. I mean, we need
in other words,
laws.
history is over.
Yes.
I think we thought that back after the Berlin Wall came down. It didn't work, Jesse. But anyway.
What are you talking about?
Well, don't worry about it. We thought history was over. I'll explain to you later. But on this argument.
Just read the article by Hans.
Well, I'll get back to it. Because you're going to test me on it. But on this argument, what interests me here is, it's futile to say you're going to regulate speech. That's ridiculous.
But it's happening.
But it's not. Well, what's interesting? You and I differ on this because I think it's happening when people say things like pro-life versus pro-choice. Or they say pro-gun or Second Amendment rights versus public safety.
I agree with you there.
They choose their language.
Right.
And they insist on, or they say identity politics versus individual rights that should be protected for gays, minorities, Jews, whoever. Mm-hmm. So people choose their language. Right. And the question I think that he's really interested in comes from the hearings earlier this week with Google. Remember when Google was there and you had people like Steve King and others saying, hey, well, how come when there's a search, it comes up negative for me? What did Ted Lieu say? He said, if you want to have good search results, do good things. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of Republicans are angry.
Talking about the content
only
versus
Republicans
suppression.
do bad things, Juan.
What?
Only Republicans do bad things?
No, I think we agree it's Greg today.
Well, yes. Let me bring Dan in this. I actually agree with Juan talking about how language can be regulated by the choice of terminology you use. But what we're seeing now is we're actually being told that if you don't use certain words, you can get in trouble. So if you actually do not agree to using a specific pronoun, you could be in trouble.
You no longer have the right to remain silent.
Right.
Right? Mm-hmm. One thing that's ironic about this, so big tech has replaced big banks or big pharma as what the liberals want to go after.
Right, and Wall Street.
And, big banks.
Yes. Oh, okay.
Right, got it.
Yes, wow.
And the thing is that
excuse me,
the Silicon Valley is mostly liberal, right?
Yeah.
Like they're all mostly liberal. Wait till 3 weeks from now when the Democrats have subpoena power, they have the gavel, and they are going to go after Silicon Valley because that's their new target. And so pretty soon you're going to see a bunch of Silicon Valley people maybe rethinking their support.
Yes, or upping the virtue signaling to save.
That will be exhausting.
That was to save their skin.
We could have like a scale.
We could have a scale. Scales are fun. I'm going to have one at my Christmas party.
Am I allowed to talk about Rudolph's red nose, or is that bad?
It is bad.
That's bad.
It's bad. He had a drinking problem. A liberal pundit lashing out at Melania Trump for daring to call out the media. The video ahead.
First Lady Melania Trump calling out the, quote, opportunists in the media during a sit-down with Sean Hannity.
What's been the hardest thing that you have to deal with?
I would say the opportunists who are using my name or my family name to advance themselves, from comedians to journalists to performers, book writers.
Does it hurt?
It doesn't hurt. The problem is they're writing the history, and it's not correct.
After the interview, a CNN contributor attacking the First Lady for what she says is complaining.
She continues to whine about a situation that she's part of, and it's a great honor to be First Lady. And I'm sure privately you're allowed to grouse, but you know, if Michelle Obama had done half the complaining that she has done in her limited interviews, she doesn't do many, she'd be skewered.
Dana, I want to start with you. Your lens and perspective from the different administrations.
Well, I give a ton of leeway to all first ladies, and then in the future, first gentlemen, because they didn't. They didn't get elected, right? But they serve, and also, you know, you serve when you do a lot of work. And you don't get paid for it. She does limited interviews because she actually doesn't bring a lot of attention on herself. Like, she is an amazing person. You saw her with the children at Toys for Tots this week, with the Marines. She loved it. She was out with the military yesterday, and then she did the interview with Sean. But I have to say that I don't know of any First Lady who didn't complain about press coverage, especially what was usually targeted at themselves or at their husband. You read any of their autobiographies after they leave the White House, all of them say the same thing. So I think that Joan Walsh is complaints about complaining are misplaced.
Greg, what are your thoughts as to people who say that her role is maybe archaic, but she doesn't do it well? What would you say to those who say these things that she has to do, they should be modernized, and maybe she's just simply not good at domestication and decorating a hallway with Christmas trees?
I would tell them to stuff it. You know what? The people meanest to the First Lady happen to be women. Have you noticed that? Joan Walsh happens to. It's interesting that, you know, feminists are all about leaning in, me too, you go girl, until you disagree with them, and then they're as chauvinistic, sexist as the next guy.
It's not that they don't even disagree with her. They just don't like her husband.
Yeah, it's called Trump hate spillover. It hits everybody that's in his circle, because she's kept a lower profile than Amelia Earhart. Let's face it, she's not out there, but they go after her. And I said this before. Imagine if your spouse ran for president in a foreign country and won, and now I became the First Lady, you became the First Lady. It's a job you didn't really sign up for. That's what happened to her. Yeah. Previous First Ladies, the people married to Clinton and to Bush and to Obama, they didn't sign up for it, but they knew it was possible because there was politics in two families, and with Obama,
the Clintons are at college planning it.
Yeah, exactly. So they were ready for it. She had no idea this was going to be in her life, and no, she's doing a damn good job.
You know, I was trying to think about what is it that happened to her, and I thought to myself, I remember people said she was slow to go to Washington, and then everybody said, but that's because of your child in schools, right? That made sense. But then she wore that jacket, Greg. Remember the jacket? I don't care, whatever it said on the. I think that
fashion.
I
own one, Juan.
Oh, you do have
yes.
one. I think they sold out wherever they were selling. Yes. But then her parents were chain migrants. They became, and then people said, well, that's a contradiction. The president's so down on chain migration. But then Michael Wolff said,
why is this her problem?
Well, because this is what I think she could be complaining about specifically, like put a name to the problem. And then Michael Wolff said she cried in his book, cried on the night of election because she didn't want it. And I think Bob Woodward said this couple has
a lot of people cried, Juan.
Yeah,
a lot of Democrats.
I was going to say, it was me. It was me.
But you know what? These are little things, and there's no big thing.
Well, that's
so
what
you
I'm saying.
need a lot of little things.
What is the
big thing?
What is she complaining about?
I could name a few, Juan.
Well,
she was portrayed as a stripper.
Yes.
She's been called a hostage. Her decorations have been ridiculed every single year during Christmas. You know, her fashion style, her accent, she's been ridiculed on a number of levels. I think after a while that builds up. I just want to tip my hat off to her. It was very brave to go on Sean Hannity's show for her. Took a lot of courage. I thought she handled it really well. Listen, I think what's really going on is that she is an immigrant, and she didn't grow up in this country. She's a private person. She wants to take care of her son first and foremost. And she's not that, she's not going to go out there to the wall and say, build the wall, like Hillary did, Hillary Care. She's not into the policy the way Hillary Clinton was. So she's just going to lay back, do her thing, and she doesn't expect incoming to the level that she's getting it right now. None of other first ladies were treated with the same type of vitriol.
I will say this, too, that I think this was an incredibly lost opportunity by the press corps and by everyone who's attacked her for generosity. And I don't mean that in a Pollyanna way, but I mean that in a way that if they automatically lumped her in with the office of the presidency and hated and loathed the man serving in that office, then use her as a conduit, build her up, get in her ear so that that can help sway policy or sway some type of messaging rather than, again, lumping her in and kind of subjecting her to this.
It's also just a weird choice to basically pick apart a First Lady's interview.
Fast 7's coming up.
She deserves a lot
Big surprise.
Okay. All right. An office email chain goes horribly wrong. And would you give up your smartphone for $100,000 before taxes? That and more in the Fastest 7 up next.
I'm an Albert Charles.